In this analysis, I want to welcome you to what's essentially a coaching session. Today, we are unpacking the actual mechanics of self-sabotage. Specifically, we're looking at how perfectionism and procrastination literally get in our own way when we're trying to plan big goals. So let's dive right in.
Okay, let's dive into this. We have all seen this classic bicycle meme, right? And honestly, it is the absolute perfect visual metaphor for self-sabotage because it validates that incredibly frustrating feeling. You've got the bike, you've got the open road, you have literally all the resources and ability to succeed, and yet, right at the absolute last minute, you jam a stick into your own wheel. I mean, why do we do this? Well, we stop ourselves with this negative internal dialogue. We tell ourselves we aren't ready, or we aren't good enough, or the timing just isn't right. It's a completely self-inflicted roadblock. Now, what's really interesting here is how we completely dismantle a massive societal myth. Because for years, we've been taught to treat perfectionism as a badge of honor. I mean, think about it. How many times have you heard someone proudly claim, "Oh, I'm a perfectionist," as their greatest weakness in a job interview? But listen to the actual definition: the tendency to improve indefinitely. And indefinitely is the trap right there. If you're constantly tweaking, constantly adjusting, and never entirely satisfied, it actually means you never finish what you start. It is not a superpower, it's a roadblock to actually experiencing your goals. So the absolutely crucial point is this. Perfectionism is not about being meticulous. It's not about having high standards. Perfectionism is fear in disguise. I really want to say that loudly and clearly, because it completely shifts the paradigm. When we obsess over every tiny detail being absolutely flawless before we even take a step, we are usually just terrified of taking the step itself. We use the pursuit of perfection to basically protect ourselves from the vulnerability of actually trying and, potentially failing. Let me share a real story from our source material that really brings this to life. The host was looking at this volunteer opportunity at a dog shelter in Scotland, and it sounded amazing. Massive, fluffy rescue dogs living in a beautiful remote island setting. Sounds great, right? But she ultimately backed out. And her logical excuse? Well, they don't have Wi-Fi, and I work online, so I absolutely can't go. But looking back, that logical excuse was masking a deep-seated fear. The application asked for someone adventurous, and deep down, she was terrified she just wasn't adventurous enough to handle living remotely in a tent or a rustic refuge. The whole no Wi-Fi detail, that was just perfectionism doing its job, giving her a flawless, ironclad logical excuse to avoid facing her fear. And this leads us to an undeniable truth. Perfection does not exist. It is a completely subjective illusion. I mean, what's perfect for you might be completely flawed for someone else. And let's be honest, what you thought was perfect 5 years ago is probably pretty cringeworthy today, right? Because you've grown. Waiting for a project, a travel itinerary, or a life decision to be completely flawless will only paralyze you forever. You're going to be stuck at the starting line for the rest of your life if you wait for the illusion of perfection to magically materialize. So I want you to pause and introspect for a second here. Think about the last time you were planning a trip or some major project and you found yourself being a quote-unquote perfectionist. What were the excuses you used to delay taking action? And if you dig just a little bit deeper, what were you actually afraid of? Really, what is the worst that could happen if your plan wasn't 100% flawless? Acknowledging that underlying fear is honestly the first real step to moving past it. And this brilliantly illustrates the twin sister of perfectionism, which is procrastination. Imagine you have a massive, important task staring you right in the face, like booking that major flight or finally launching that project. It feels so large and so scary that we suddenly find ourselves obsessing over tiny, completely unimportant tasks instead. We tell ourselves we're being productive, by clearing out our inbox or organizing our desk, but really, we're just stalling because the main goal feels way too heavy. This often manifests as the endless analysis trap. You see this all the time when people are buying gear for a trip. The source shares this great anecdote about shopping for a microphone. So the host needed a simple, lightweight microphone for traveling. But suddenly, she was stuck in a weeks-long loop of analyzing endless technical specs. Did it need to be wireless? Should it have a lapel clip? Analyzing every single option on the internet feels like progress, but it's really just another form of stalling. So, how do we break out of this? Well, here is the cure for the analysis trap. Step 1. Identify the core need. In that microphone story, the core need was simply better audio and small enough to travel with. That's it. Step 2. Ignore the extras. If you record sitting at your desk, you don't need to spend extra weeks researching wireless upgrades. And step 3. Just make a choice. Accept that the options are literally infinite, draw a line in the sand, and make a decision so you can actually move forward. Now, a big reason we fall into perfectionism and endless analysis is because we're chasing the illusion of absolute control. We kind of think that if we just research enough and prepare flawlessly, we can guarantee the outcome. But even if you execute a task flawlessly, the final outcome might still be completely out of your hands.
Take the Canadian visa story from our source material. The host did everything perfectly. She gathered police records from every single country she'd ever lived in. She spent an hour and a half meticulously detailing every single country she had visited since January 1st, 2012. She even traveled to an embassy in Spain just to get her biometrics done exactly by the book. It was a flawless application. And the result? It was rejected anyway over an alleged missing paper. It just proves that no matter how hard we try to perfect the process, we can never have absolute control over the final decision.
So, how do we cure this diagnosis? Well, we need some actionable mindset shifts. First, remember that perfect is just a personal decision to stop. You have to be the one to say, okay, this is good enough, I am hitting publish, I am booking the ticket. Second, you absolutely must let go of uncontrollable outcomes. Do your best, for sure, but realize the universe gets a vote. And third, embrace that real learning only happens once you start making mistakes. You can read 100 blogs about applying for a visa or traveling, but you won't actually learn how to navigate those hurdles until you start doing it yourself. I want to leave you with this final provocative thought. We've diagnosed the fears, the endless analysis, and the illusions of control, but knowledge without action is just more procrastination. So ask yourself, what can you do today that brings you closer to the trip or the goal you're organizing? I'll give you a moment of silence right now. Commit to one imperfect action today. Don't wait for the stars to align. Just take the step.